Oh, all right. So, what people?
Yep. People are trickling in here. We got people were waiting at the door here. We got 10 people in already. So welcome everybody for tonight's JUMPinar. Sorry, I'm swiping through my slides here. We're just gonna give it a few minutes, let others join in, and we'll get started very shortly.
So, Doug, Angie, so do people have access to the work file?
To the document that you sent,
Yeah, all the documents. Do they have access to it?
I'm gonna send it out in the morning afterwards. We don't. I wanted to let people wonder about what the topic will be, and then and they can review it in the morning.
Well, let me ask you.
Hmm?
Is it crazy to put the work file on the screen so they can see it while I talk?
Yeah, I can do that. That should be no problem. And then I'll scroll through
Because
it.
right now you got a picture of me and I ain't pretty.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop. I take this down in just a minute. Don't
No, I
worry.
mean it's nice, but it ain't pretty.
It's a good picture. It looks good, Stan.
Oh, thanks, amigo. So if you can put the work file so
Yeah,
I can read, they can read through it while I'm talking to them.
yeah, I'll do that, and then we'll also send it out tomorrow in a follow-up email.
Yeah, with the PDFs.
All right.
You gonna bring it up?
Yeah. There we go.
Oh, okay. So as I talk, I can ask you to keep scrolling down.
Yeah, sure. And I'll pay attention. I'll follow and
So
scroll.
right now they can see the word file,
Yeah, they should be able to.
and
Angie.
they can see me.
Yep.
No kidding. How cool is this? Jesus. All right.
I think we should just go ahead and get started because I think
Okay. So
I can't see how many people are in, but I think we had just over 25 or 30. So welcome everybody.
yeah.
Welcome to tonight's JUMPinar. I don't think Stan needs any introduction, but we just do have some housekeeping things to take care of. I just wanted to in a second give Angie a second to update you about the loan programs, but also just remind you that we have a Q&A session. So I'm sure you're going to have plenty of questions for Stan here. So we're going to hold that until the end of our conversation. So once we get through what we've prepared here, and so stick around and type them in using the Q&A tab. You can do it now, and we'll save them till the end and get to them when we get a chance. So yeah, well, if this is your first time here, this is our series called JUMPinars, which happen every Monday night at 7 p.m. And tonight we're covering what is your journey as a real estate investor with Stan Smith. And real quick, Angie, you just want to update us on the loan programs? What's going on?
Thanks, Derek. Yeah, so a lot of you have probably been here on other Mondays, and just want to say we do have a great loan program if you're looking to purchase and renovate properties in middle neighborhoods in Philadelphia. You can check out all of our terms and conditions at jumpstartphilly.com. So we have, I think a couple of weeks ago, we just hit a $30 million milestone for loans committed, which is really exciting. And we're still lending in our lending area. So please check out our map online. And if you have a project in that area, let us know. And if you have any questions at all, Derek and I are happy to answer those for you. So we hope to see an application from you soon. And you guys are in for a treat tonight. I really thank Stan for coming back and discussing the real estate journey. And you guys are really going to learn a lot. I'm going to learn a lot as well. So thank you, Stan, and thanks, Derek. Take care.
Always a pleasure.
All right.
Hey guys, welcome to the web seminar. I wanted to focus on the heart of why we are in real estate, and it's really simple. And a short answer about building wealth through income-producing property. And these properties create income, so we call it cash flow. These properties, through tax advantage that the tax code, the IRS allows us, we take depreciation and we pay less income. We also have principal paid down. When you get a loan, it's amortized, usually terms of 15, 20, 25, 30. For commercial loans over 5 years, it's typically 5, 7, and 10. um, short-term loans that have either balloons or reset, but they're being amortized in either a 20 or 25-year schedule. Once you know that, you can find out what your principal pay down, which is an important and valuable piece of information and as part of your analysis and the big picture of looking at everything: depreciation, principal pay down, and the cash flow and the rate of return. So, so for your typical savvy investor, he figures out real simple. This is a cycle. You buy, you rehab, you rent, you stabilize, you get permanent loan, you refinance, and you repeat the cycle. So for the small investors, for the people that work, I strongly suggest when we apply this strategy, so you don't get overwhelmed, is that you should consider buying a minimum of one income-producing property a year. And that's a reasonable goal. I have no problem with you telling me that it took a year or 2 years to get educated, to get my financial terms in place, become a ready able buyer, have a professional team in place, have my money in place from investors or from family and friends or from private lenders or from hard money lenders. And as long as you get started with your first one and just choose to do one a year, this is really a 10 to 12-year process where I truly believe that the cash flow will continue to grow, your net worth will continue to grow as you buy properties because you add equity. And what's going to happen in a 10 to 12-year span, you'll be able to start refinancing your properties either by pulling out cash or selling at retail. And those two options give you new ways to double up on your original down payment that you use. And the beauty with this scenario is that once you build it, your cash flow and your equity will be in place. And we call it financial freedom, guys. Especially 10, 12 years later when your hits are going to be, you're making your supplemental, your income from your job and then your real estate adds a supplemental income and it's hefty numbers because now you're pulling cash from a property. And don't forget when you refinance, you don't pay capital gains on that amount. So if you're an astute or smart money, you will reinvest that money into leveraging that into a bigger property. We call it scaling. Scale means you have a bigger down payment, so now you can buy a bigger property that generates bigger income. And then you just duplicate the cycle. And one of the benefits of me doing this for 32 years is I've always done this cycle of buy, rehab, stabilize, rent, refinance. That's all I do. That's my focus. I mean, obviously I got flips on the side and some flips are wholesale, but really my whole goal is cash flow and add equity and have my tenants pay down the principal and enjoy the benefits of taxation, which, by the way, at the end of this format, I brought in 5 documents of tax returns and wanted to show you that I think it's essential for you to become a little bit financially more savvier, because these decisions of the tax consequences are important for you to know to make better judgments so you can get greater buying power from your money. So, so as I look at my Word file, let me see what else where I'm at. So, so the whole concept of buying, the acronym, by the way, is BRRR. I've seen that in numerous places. And I know Bigger Pockets, which is a great website for beginners, uses that a lot, or they create it, or that's one of the main acronyms that they use. But it stands for buying, rehabbing, renting, and refinance. I want to tell you that in that scenario, my whole concept is I use cash, other people's money, my lines of credits, my credit cards, whoever I can take money, whoever I can find money. I buy it right, I stabilize it, get the rents in place. Then I always go get a permanent loan and I pay everybody back. And the reason I do that is so I can buy quick and go to settlement quick and take advantage of the discount on a purchase, usually 30 days or less. And that's how I apply this. Obviously, as I got matured and I benefited from all this equity and refi, now I have my own lines of credits, and my credit cards are large enough, and my lines of credits are large enough that usually I have enough cash to do it without having to tap into a private lending or investors to acquire property, stabilize it, and then I go get a permanent financing to pay everybody back, start the cycle again. And this is all I do. And I benefit from, as time goes by, I benefit from added cash flow, benefit from the equities. And then, so as an investor, you might do 3 a year. As an individual who works full time, I would just tell you to focus on 1 a year and try to acquire 1 a year for 10 years, and you'll see the benefits of what's going to happen 10 years later. The beauty with buying 1 a year is that year 3, year 4, you're going to be more sophisticated. You're going to buy better, and you're going to buy with better margins, with better spreads. Obviously, for my time and money, if I'm going to buy multifamily that's under 4 units, 4 dwellings, anything over 5 is commercial. The terms are a little stricter and more demanding. So if you stay under 4, you'll have more flexibility with terms. Don't forget, one way to make more money with your real estate is terms. So what's my train of thought with that? Hold on, guys. I'm thinking in Spanish. Give me a second.
No problem.
I got to translate. Anyway, the beauty with the multifamilies of under 4 is that you get better terms, and the terms are more attractive and more friendlier than commercial. Commercial requires bigger down payments typically, and the terms are not as attractive because you have balloons or every 5 loans are typically every 5 years. Some banks will do 5, 7, or 10. The interest rates reflected on that rate on that term. So the longer the term, the higher the interest rate, because obviously the bank is hedging. But usually I try to get, if I'm over 5 units, I try to get terms where I call them 5 and 5, which means 5 with a reset on your term, and which is really a fee, small fee, and it resets for another 5 years. And that's how I do the commercial when I go over 5-year units. So what I was trying to tell you, now I remember, I was trying to tell you, I set expectations for cash flow and income. And now that I know what time and effort it takes for me, I don't touch anything that doesn't create more than $5,000 a month in gross income. So for a smaller scale investor, your mindset should be, let's start at 500, let's move it up to 750 per a month per opportunity or purchase. As time goes by, you're going to learn that what the typical costs are, and you can trust the numbers, and you can push those numbers in your research, because you'll know what the real numbers are. And know, for example, if I was buying a triplex, I like to make $250 a unit a month, so that's $750 a month. Well, figure if you bought 10 of these, well, that's $7,500 a month in cash flow. Never mind taking advantage of the tax consequences, which is even greater. That's my point. You're working on a job, you're earning your W-2, and then you add real estate to supplement your income, and real estate will work in your favor and works for you. And then 10 years later, this is keeping it simple. So just think about that process. I know concerning down payments, I know most of you think that I got to flip some properties in order to make some money. And then once I flip, I can use some of them down payment to buy and hold. I know typical investors usually got to do 3 or 4 deals before he can do one by himself, and that's great. I think for the smallest scale novice starting up, it's real simple. You gotta besides continue your educational growth, and your path, you have to network, and then in that network you have to meet private lenders, private investors. You need to know how to talk to them. You need to know how to ask for money. You need to know how to listen to what you want to get. A lot of people are looking for on the typical. This is the typical scenario for a private lender, which is really, somebody individual who's a little savvier, who's willing to get a rate of return. Typically, they'll do 3 to 5 year loans. They'll look for 8% somewhere. That's not a killer. They're only putting up at 25%. You try to go get a mortgage, and they only put up to 25%. Obviously, another way of raising money is that you become partners, and you do typically 50-50 or 60-40. And this is one way to extend your down payment. I'm going to tell you personally, I've made, you're not going to believe this, but I've made more money at 50% ownership than at 100%. I don't know if that doesn't make any sense to you, but because at 50%, I'm always creating an opportunity at all times. Where 100, it takes me a little bit of time to find that property to be able to do by myself. So thank God that some of the properties that I own by myself now are big enough to generate enough cash flow that I'm in a good place. But that's 30 years of building, and this is about building real estate and creating wealth by having income-producing properties, taking advantage of the equity and the principal paid down and the tax advantages the IRS gives you. That's simple. So can you move up the Word file up?
Yep. Yep, they can see it.
Did you move it up?
Oh, move it up. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I meant down.
Okay. How's that?
Okay, so okay. So I got this term from I'm reading the Word file, and it says your immediate goal. I need you to go further up. No, further down. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, go up. All right. Okay. Yeah. So the end goal here, guys, and I'm repeating myself, is to create wealth through real estate holdings, and that it's going to allow you to create more income. So because now you have equity, and once you get over the equity of let's say $2 million in net worth, and net worth is asset minus debt, and banks need that. They have a threshold, and typically $1 million net worth is they appreciate. $2 million, they give you more respect. Just for that young novice trying to borrow and leverage against a bank and get better terms, just be aware that ultimately that's a number minimum you're going to be. You're going to get there by default, so don't panic. Don't when I bought real estate, it wasn't about what is my net worth. It was about what is my cash flow, and I knew that the equity would eventually work in my favor and help. So, so one of the things with real estate, guys, and I'm going to talk about the taxes, is the taxation advantages is that capital gains rate is at 15% once you hold it over a year. Your earned income is at 33-35%. That's a big difference over time, every year. Also, one of my moments where I take advantage of the real estate is that I look at my depreciation schedule, and I need to understand how I carry that forward. I pay attention in the tax return where my total assets, or what we call the property bases, are, because the IRS is going to use that to decide to be able to understand what capital gains are going to pay. And I'm going to show you that on the tax return. But that information is really helpful for me and for the future. So when I try to navigate and make a play. Also, I need you guys to understand that one nice thing about paying lower capital gains is also not paying capital gains. And one way to do that is taking advantage of a strategic 1031 exchange. They also have Delaware Trust Exchange out there, which is slightly different. But these are mechanisms the IRS allows you to move your future capital gains and defer your depreciation schedule that you got to pay back. And by the way, that they call that recapture depreciation. And this allows you to also be able to transfer wealth through estate planning. And these are just basic accounting principles that everybody should understand so you can take advantage of it. I also going to show you an example of the money capital gains that was made, the depreciation schedule that I had to pay back, or it's called recapture. I had to pay back, and what the end result was in my percentage of income, and what would have benefited if I used 1031, which I did not in this situation. So we'll discuss that soon. Can you move the paper, the Word file? Yeah. All right. So I want to tell you about just quick examples of doing the BRRR scenario, which is buy, rehab, rent, refi. I have a few friends. I have colleagues, quite a few colleagues that have stories and all be successful, which is great. It's great when we all get together and we exchange ideas. And, it's so funny how we all got there in a different angle, And I wanted to share two of my friends because they kept it simple and stupid. And I need you to keep all this simple and doesn't need to be complicated. I mean, if you look at my resume of 10 years of flipping and 5 years of apartment buildings, and then my 18 years of commercial real estate, I was about scaling because every time I sold something, I either did a 1031 or I sold at retail, obviously 8, 9, 10 years, because it's about holding real estate. It's not about selling, it's about holding it. It's about paying down your principal, about taking advantage of the appreciation, the depreciation and all that. That's how you extend your biggest dollar via real estate. So I have an example here, my friend Frank, who purposely stayed under 4 dwelling units because he was taking advantage of the better loan terms offered for those units rather than commercial. He does have some small commercial. He has a number of daycares, like 3 or 4. But he really focused on 4 dwellings, predominantly triplex and houses and single family homes. And his whole purpose was to rent these units to a nonprofit agency that needed housing for their clients. And the only beauty with that is that he kept his vacancies almost to 0 because the nonprofits would guarantee the income every month, whether vacant or occupied. And as you become a property manager, you're going to find out that turnover expense when tenant moves out and you got to redo the unit, it's a killer for your profit and loss statement, and hurts. And anyway, so he was a total niche oriented for a number of reasons, but one of the things that I loved what he did, because he took advantage of the better terms for 4 units or less, he intentionally set all these terms of his loans on a 15-year schedule. And, can you imagine just doing this for 15 years and then you're done? Free, financially free, not just in equity, but in cash and leveraging. It just made it work for him. And I thought that was awesome. Then I have another friend, again, just talking about keeping it simple. He loves 3-bedroom houses, and And he loved that range of 1,200, 1,500, because there he can make a 750 NOI or profit, net profit. That's where he's pretty sure he could make that. And he felt he chose specific areas because he knew he could find those rents at the right price. And but by doing that, he also felt that he found a better tenant profile, more, not necessarily more middle class strong, where the dual income's a little stronger, and the support of dual income was more helpful than an example as a Germantown, where property rates over 27%, and you're going to find that a lot of single moms or single individuals are the ones are your tenants, and the burn's even higher. So they all live like all of us, paycheck, and so a car breaks down, you lose your tenant because they can't get to work. So even though you meet some great people, you feel terrible because that's the reality of life. But as a landlord, that turnover expense, it's a serious setback, and it's loss of revenue you can't make up. So anyway, my friend Nick was more selective in the neighborhoods, and maybe he pays a little more, but he still gets his NOI that he expects. And next thing you know, he's got 30 of these at 750, per month. That's a great story. And what Nick did was he tried not to sell on these properties, even when he had good equity. What he did is he borrowed against the equity, and which is a different strategy of raising cash to buy the next property. So at the end of the day, it's all about, your focus should be about buying, rehabbing, renting, stabilizing, refinancing, repeat the process. You know what? We should focus on the accounting. So the first accounting sheet that I want to show you for a tax return that is part of an LLC. Let's do number one. No, this is not it. This is basis. I want you to raise this just a little bit more. No, that's fine. You know what? That's fine. I need you to go down. So this is from an LLC, and we're going to focus and try to explain how accounting makes you a little savvier. You can make more money. Plus, in addition, you need to know this so you understand what you own and what your responsibilities are to your debt, the IRS. So this is a Form 1065. They call it Schedule L, which is really a balance sheet. And it keeps track of your depreciation, keeps track of every year when you do returns, keeps track of all the improvements. We call it CapEx improvements. Obviously, during the year, you're going to have expenses that are going to be deducted from your profit and loss statement. And then you have expenses that are going to be added to your basis, which is your improvements. In this example, obviously, you see line number 14, it shows total assets. I just want to tell you, I'm not an accountant, so don't take my advice as an accountant. But if you see in this scenario, it tells me what my total assets is after, 13 years. I know what my asset base. So if I went and sold that property for $4 million, then I know that 4 million minus closing costs minus that, it's going to be my capital gains. Well, I need to know that before I sell the property to make sure I have the money to pay those bills. If I don't have enough cash coming back, then I'm 1031 that property intentionally. So, but this is an important asset that I need you to know. There's more to this than just the total asset in this discussion, but I'm not going to get into that. I just want to teach you a basic threshold, a basic understanding that you need to know about your tax returns so you can track your basis. When you do your taxes every year, and you meet with the accountant, you give him additional improvements. You want to make sure he adds that to that balance sheet. So No, before you give me that, can you go to the, well, we can talk about this. Can you go up on this a little more?
Oh yeah, I'll go to 2A actually. That's this one, right?
Yeah. So in my LLC, on a personal, it's called something different, but it's the same concept. On an LLC, it's called Form 8825, which is really income and expenses for the LLC. We call it profit and loss statement. You can see in here the gross rents and all the expenses. The reason I highlighted this is because I wanted to see line item number 14. It says $113.60, 113 060 of depreciation. That's a lot of money that's deducted from my expense size. So treat it as a paper loss that's carried over. Well, understand that's a substantial amount. And the way it works is that for residential is 27 years, and I think for commercial is 37. They pick your basis. Basis is what you purchased it, your closing costs, and what you put into it, improvements. So that's your basis. That's your total assets. The previous sheet that I showed you, it's called total assets. I call it basis. So now that you know your basis, you can divide. For commercial, it would be 37 years, I think it is. So you divide 37 by 37 years, you get a annual depreciation schedule. For this one, it happens to be 113,000, and that's how you come up with that. So, but if you notice, it goes to the expense side, which does is it increases my expense, which means I'm paying 113,000 less in income. So understand the value of this taxation, understand the value of real estate. It's working in your favor. There's no other feature by the IRS offered for anything else, only for real estate. And this is the beauty about buying and holding for cash flow, for principal pay down, for appreciation, for depreciation schedule, and etc. So I want to show you how the next sheet, number 3. I hope this makes sense.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah, that's the balance sheet. Number 3 would be no. That's nope. The one with the depreciation. That's it. Yeah. So I need you to go up a little bit. In this form, this is how they figure out your this is for you to understand how they figure out your depreciation schedule. That's all. Be aware that it's there, and it's a way to look at it. Can we go to the next one, which is a K1? So on this scenario, right, this is a K1. When you have partnerships, LLCs, each member gets a K1. And then the K1 is used and added to your personal tax returns. So in this particular one, you'll see on the left-hand column says Schedule K1. Just understand that. I try to erase names and social security and addresses to keep the information personal, private. But anyway, if you look at number 2, it tells you what you're carrying over to your personal tax returns, which is the income. And don't forget, cash flow or real estate income is treated differently to capital gains. So understand that. Just be aware, capital gains is at a different rate than cash flow is, which is income or losses. And this is where you get the information from. So I want to go to the next page.
I think that's this one here. This one.
Okay. Yeah, I want to go up. I need to see. I need you to go further down. Up. No, up. Sorry. There's three red lines in there. I need somehow. Like that. So on this situation, on this K1, this is the which is then transferred to my personal. I wanted to show you. You need to understand this. Number 2 is showed rental income. In here, because we sold the property and we're closing down, that makes sense that you had a negative rental income. But I need you to look at number 9C. And it says unrecapture something. Anyway, that's referring to depreciation. And remember, every year the IRS allows you to depreciate using the depreciation schedule. You have to pay that back. And what's a little scary with this, that now you're being taxed at the regular rate, because that was used against your profit and loss statement, which means that's regular income and not capital gains income. So it's different, it's a higher rate. Typically, recapture rates at 25%. Still more attractive than a W-2 income. But in this situation, if you notice, that's a lot of money to pay back. But you know, this allows you to. My whole teaching of you is, you know where it is. You got to be thinking about this when you sell a property, because you got to understand how much taxes you're going to pay. One's going to be on recapture at a different rate, and the other's going to be capital gains. If you notice the next line underneath it, that's capital gains. These are numbers that you know, that make you think like, okay, what am I going to do? 1031, or am I going to go out straight out and decide to pay on this? I just need you to be educated, understand this exists. This information should be used to your advantage. I meet with so many novices, and they have no clue. And this is part of the of your beginning of your educating yourself and becoming financially savvy, because that's important and part of your growth. So let's look at that at the spreadsheet math. I put an Excel sheet. It's a PDF that I did. All right. So if you notice, capital gains showed $1.6 million, and at 15%, that's how much my taxes due. Then I had to recapture depreciation, because I'm supposed to pay it back, because every year I had that property, I think 13, 14 years. Every year I took depreciations deductions in my benefit, and now I got to pay it back. So if you look at the rate, that rate's around 25%. That's how much more I got to pay. So you see all my tax due to the IRS, that's a big number. Well, if I chose not to, do it at 1031, it's a way of deferring my depreciation schedule, recapture schedule, or my capital gains, that ended up being 26% penalty or taxation of my income. So obviously you want to avoid that. So if I would have done 1031, it would have been zero. So I just want to make a point about how you need to be savvy and understand that this is important considerations when you're taking advantage of the real estate that the IRS allows you to maneuver, and you need to take advantage. And if you are, be aware about how you got to play it and be sensitive to these numbers. In this situation, if you think about it, listen, paying $400,000 is crazy, but if you make $1.6 million, that's not so crazy. So, but you'd rather not do that. You'd rather take advantage and do a 1030. Anyway, hopefully some of this made sense and I didn't complicate it.
Sure.
I'm ready for questions.
Yeah. Well, first, thank you, Stan. That was great. And just for everybody in the call who missed the typed out information, I'll be sending that in an email tomorrow, along with those we can talk about whether you want to send those out or not, but everybody should get tax forms if they're doing their taxes. They can look on their own. But yeah, we have a couple questions here, and I'll while I read this first one, I'll give others a chance to type them in. But our first comes from Stefan, and he's wondering, how long do you typically wait between stabilizing a property and refinancing the property? Like, how long after finding renters would you go to the bank?
Well, obviously, time is money. But remember that. So you immediately want to go to settlement. I mean, before I buy property, I already know that this is what it's going to rent for. This is my gross income. This is how much I project to make. And then I also know how long it's going to take me to rehab. A rehab is, if you stay under 4 units, a rehab could be 3 months, could be 8 months, depending on how extensive your mechanicals, because mechanicals eat up time and money. So, which is fine. If it takes you 8 months, that's fine, as long as your cash flow and it's in place after 8 months, and you borrow knowing that you're going to take you 8 months. So, doesn't matter whether it's 3 or 8 months, just make sure that you borrow to carry that. For example, when you get a loan with a bank, they're going to ask you for a interest reserve, and you're going to say, well, I want to protect myself for 9 months because I know it's going to take me 8 months to rehab, right? So the interest payment doesn't come out of my pocket. I borrow that. One of the disadvantages of that is you're paying points on it, but if the lender if the property has enough equity, you bought it right, and you're rehabbing it right, and you got space to buy interest reserves, borrow interest reserve, do it. So it comes out of the interest reserve, not out of your pocket. You can focus on your rehab. By the time your rehab is done, then you can then once you stabilize, you can go to another bank and get a long-term loan and try to get good terms.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I hope I answer that.
Yeah. Next question comes from Ugo, and how's it going, Ugo?
What's up, Ugo?
This isn't really a question. He's just, maybe you can comment on this. He said, sounds like the BRRR method plus tax planning is a win-win situation. And I think you'd agree, right, Stan?
Listen, that's all I've been doing once I figure it out, which was early on. I started by default just because I needed cash flow. Because I needed cash flow because I didn't want to be rehabbing and flipping, even though I did well. I didn't want to rehab and flipping my entire life because that's physically exhausting, and it's risky. And I wanted to build cash flow, and then by building cash flow, I built equity. That's what I learned from the very beginning. And I realized that once I got a little savvy, I realized that I was this is the highest and best use to be in real estate. Nothing else but this. Just follow this format.
And if there's any training program graduates or upcoming attendees for our fall program, which starts next Monday, will certainly learn the BRRRR method. That's kind of what our 7 jump sets are modeled off of, and that's what the core of it is. So what Stan covered, you'll get the same sort of walkthrough in our training program.
Yeah, I just today it's more about at the end of this whole story. Besides how simple your journey is, where you need to be at, it's really about, hey, taxation has the benefit of really extending your financial strength in real estate. That's all. That was my argument. People don't know that. So,
all right. The next question, and we just got a couple more here, comes from Brenda. This is a little bit off topic, but I want to pick your brain about it. She's wondering, is there a formula to calculate the cost of a rehab? For example, should cost be based on square footage?
Yeah.
What's your take on that? Do you think?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, yeah, listen, I've done so many budgets. You're never going to be right. There's always cost overruns due to unforeseen or change orders that wasn't expected because you lack the sophistication to recognize that expense line item on your budget, or the contractor missed it. So anyway, so be aware that you're not going to always meet your budget on schedule, on the dollar amount schedule. However, I always get a space plan for all my properties. Always. That's like a must. And the reason I do a space plan is because I need the square footages so I can do some cost estimate, because a lot of costs can be done on square footage. Flooring, rug, painting, drywall. Well, a lot of those can be done on square footages. You can calculate a budget that is reasonable and it's going to be close to exact. And, that's perfect. So yes, square footage, it's a good way to create maybe 70% of your budget. That's a good start. So I always I go to I try to avoid an architect because they're expensive. This is monotonous for them, but I try to go to a designer or to a draft guy who's a draft guy. Is a guy who has an architecture degree without an architect's license. Because he didn't take an exam, but he knows how to do space plans with dimensions. And those guys are pricier, and they're willing to do. They're also willing to do a space plan with. You want a space plan with dimensions, so So you can see square footages, and once you have square footages for the whole entire space, for individual rooms, for hallways, you can then, make some good calculations. Right now, you go to Home Depot in the wood department for the flooring, it'll tell you what your square footage you're paying, and it'll tell you what the square footage if you hire them to use a contract. So right over the bat, I just got a number there for my line item. For novice, that's awesome. Because where do you go? Well, you don't have the assortment of deep assortment of professional members in your team yet to call up and ask that question. What is a typical square footage cost for this? So anyway, so always get a space plan if you can, done through square foot.
All right, we got two more questions here. One's from Anthony Robinson, and he's wondering, how long does it take to qualify for a long-term loan after a rehab is finished?
Well, so that's really a loan application. And don't forget, loan applications are based on property income, NOI, and they meet some debt ratios, and then they look at your credit and personal income and blah, blah, blah. So I can't really answer that question because I don't know what his financials are. But I usually start the process a month before I'm done with the rehab, meaning that it's going to take me another 2 or 3 weeks to fill it up with leases. Because I can start a loan application once I have leases, I can go to the bank and I can give them an estimated pro forma. But the leases, real leases, allows me to start the conversation with the bank that this is my projected income, and here's my proof. Here's the leases. Mm-hmm. And then banks have books of thresholds of what a typical expense are for that type of profile building, whether it's 3 units or 4 units or 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms. They already know. So you give them an estimated projection, they'll accept it. And then as it is, they'll take an appraisal, and the appraiser is going to agree or disagree with the projections, and they'll tell you what the expenses are. I would start the process a month before you're completing, start the mortgage process to get a permanent loan. And then obviously, if you're buying on the 4 units, you should get a 15 or 20-year loan that expires in that time, and there's no prepayment penalty. If you go over 5, don't forget, then we have 5, 7, or 10-year loans that have either reset or balloons, which means you got to go get a new loan, and that gets expensive.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Next question comes from Keith, and he's wondering, do you have to 1031 all of the proceeds from a sale into another property, or 1031 a portion and incur capital gains on the remainder?
That's correct. You can do both.
Okay.
He's right.
Okay. And Keith, just a heads up, we do have a JUMPinar upcoming with John Thane in a few weeks, specifically on 1031 exchanges. So look
awesome.
up.
So make sure you said John, right?
Yeah. No.
That's awesome, because there's all these requirements for 1031. For example, you got 45 days to allocate it.